Hey, you found me, and I'm so glad you did. I have a lot of fun over here at a Juicy Pear podcast. I love interviewing people from all walks of life, and I especially like what makes a person tick. I ask the questions that people want to hear. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, this is Wendy with the Juicy Pear podcast, and we have a wonderful guest with us today. He's an author, he's an entrepreneur, he's a producer, and a die-hard storyteller with over 20 years of work experience across industry and cultures. He is also the CEO and founder of the wonderful A Story Club. Please welcome Arun Bhagwati. Hey, Arun.
Hi, Wendy. Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Now, you know what? I should say Arun is he's talking with us from India, and he was nice enough to stay up. It's way into the evening there. They're about, 11, 12 hours ahead of us. And I'm very excited that you took the time to come on our show.
Anytime.
Okay, so you've done all kinds of things. I don't even know where to begin. So you're an entrepreneur. You're also you're an actor. You're a photographer. You just start wherever you want to start, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, I would say mildly a few, but yes, majorly. Let me get into it. So my career began around 2000, 2001. When I started my career with a corporate, and I was working for an American firm called General Electric GE, and it was a very nice stint. I worked there for 4 years, learned a lot about business and analytics, and transitioning businesses from the US to India, downsizing, ramping up. It was very interesting. But I was all right with numbers, but I was never, that was never my priority to sit behind a desk and be crunching data.
Exactly.
So I kind of decided to move on within the corporate and see, what is more creative and what is interesting, what is it that I could do. And I found corporate training, and corporate training was very interesting because it involved meeting people, talking to people, learning up a lot, learning new things constantly so that you could kind of, engage your audience and expand your audience base. Because if you know more about your subject, it becomes more interesting to kind of, interact with people. While that was on, I started a very, very mild photography because we would travel, we would drive into the mountains or ride into the mountains. So I started a little bit of photography, and that kind of took a slightly serious turn for about a year and a half, 2 years. And I kept doing it because I enjoyed it. Never really picked up my own equipment per se, but I would land up where there would be shoots happening and friends were organizing shoots for magazines. I did a couple of shoots as a model as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was never really interested in it. I just did it because somebody wasn't there. And then another occasion, they were not very happy with the model on the last day. So they called me, they were like, why don't you fill it up, please? And so that's how I kind of, did it. I was always interested in producing. I wanted to make my own films. I wanted to produce my own shows. That was what my area of interest was. And by 2012, I started asking a lot of questions to people within the corporate, my seniors, who did not like the sound of those questions, because they were very direct questions. And there was a lot of why, the big why, why am I doing this? And why are we doing that? So I realized that my stint was over, and I would not want to kind of continue there. In about a year's time, I began writing. I started writing for magazines. I wrote a few articles here and there. And then I started writing my first book. I just kind of touched upon the subject, and I wrote a couple of pages, maybe 25, 30 pages, and I stacked it aside. Mm-hmm. And I've got a bunch of friends who are filmmakers, dedicated, very, very seriously into films. They started inviting me, saying that, why don't you come in? We are making a movie for a festival. Why don't you write the story for us? And I started directing because that was what my strong point was. So I began directing. The book parallelly started building. So that's how it's been for the last 20 years plus.
Wonderful. It's a great book. I read your book. It's called Guardians of Shambhala. It's very interesting. And I read here in your bio too, you have an interest in mythology and history, and that really shows in that book series. I really liked it. Could you kind of go into that? What sparked your interest in that? What made you want to write the book?
So my interest in mythology comes from my grandparents. In India, grandparents is your favorite source of supernatural and these what do you call them, extraterrestrial stories, because my grandmother used to always tell us that the stories I'm going to tell you, I'm not very sure if we're going to find these kind of people on this planet. For her, she meant in terms of virtue, so a Krishna or a Shiva, their virtues were such that she would say that you wouldn't find a man on this planet like this. But my grandfather would always say that, yeah, she's right, because these fellows were extraterrestrials. He was an army guy. He was a hardened army fellow. So he would give me his perspective that way,
Very
and
analytical. Yeah, not into that at all. Yeah.
Yeah. That started off. And then I was always very curious. So I started reading up at a very young age. I was, I think, 13 or 14 when I started reading up a little bit here and there. And that just kind of built over the years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's been a while.
Well, we have a bond. I remember last time we were talking, I don't know what the subject, I think it was UFOs or whatever. And we were talking about aliens and, the supernatural and whatnot and the paranormal. I've always found that interesting, scary, but, you just kind of got to know how to navigate it, right?
Yeah.
I just find that all interesting, because you believe in like UFOs and stuff like that, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, we come from a culture where it is understood. It is taken for, I wouldn't say taken for granted, but it's taken for, it's like a piece of information everybody has in bits and parts. It's just that nobody is really sat down to, navigate all that information and bring it to a point where they will say that, yes, we understand about extraterrestrials. But yeah, me in person, I do. I don't deny it. We are just another species.
Yeah, well, I've never been to India. I would love to someday. It would be wonderful to go there, because I just think the culture and I would just love it. I would just, I don't know a lot about it, but what I do know, I would love to, explore more. I just think it's a beautiful country.
You're welcome. You must come to India. So the city that I'm sitting and talking to you from, it's called Dehradun. It was built by the Brits, and it's amongst the topmost educational hubs of the country. India is a big country, okay. And this city is amongst the top 5. And we've got the yoga capital of the country about an hour from here. It's called Rishikesh. So it's a very, very multicultural, diverse place inside the Himalayan ranges, inside the Himalayan mountains. So you must come. It'll be very nice. I'll be a host.
Oh my gosh, I would love it. I mean, just going through the mountains. Now, wait a minute, though. I'm scared of heights. But, just traveling, getting on those roads would be, but yeah, I would love it. I know I would. Okay. So you're the CEO and founder of A Story Club, which is just a wonderful group. It's a show with authors, guests, hosts, and partners around the globe. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why you're doing it?
Yeah, so 2018, December of 2018 is when my book was published. And I'm sure you're an author, you know how hectic it is when you're getting your first book going. It's crazy. Yeah. So I got done with the publishing, and then I, took a deep breath and I asked myself that what is the next step now? Is it the second book, or is there something more that I have to do for this book? Because for me, that was it. Now it's Amazon and the other online portals that take care of the rest. A couple of months later, I figured that there wasn't much happening the way I thought it would in terms of the brand building and the marketing. So for me, there were 2 aspects to it. One was the author's brand building, and the second was the marketing aspect of it. Right. So I started getting in touch with agencies around the world, and I literally called up people and got in touch with people all over the world, asking them that, is it possible to do something in the author space which is different from just pressing boost buttons and pumping in money and just sending your product randomly all over social media? A lot of people came back with ideas to me, but nothing was really different from the rat race. There was nothing creative and different. It was very, very salesy, and there was something missing in it. So Shivani was getting ready to write her book. And Shivani started talking to me about it. And she said that, don't you think that, instead of leaving it to the publisher or leaving it to Amazon, we should take up the responsibility ourselves, because tomorrow I have my book up and ready. She's like, what will I do? You still understand this industry? She's like, I come from a banking background, IT background. I don't understand this industry. So I saw a gap. I identified a gap, and I realized that it's going to be an excellent place to explore because we have the first move advantage. There is a USP that we have a lot of creativity and people to add to the creativity. And the fact that it serves the purpose, it serves exactly what I was missing. So Shivani and I decided, let's begin. And we wanted to do festivals. We were in and only we were interested in festivals. And we began on the 26th of October, 2019 was when we kind of had our first international storytelling festival with a book launch and guests and music and food, and boom, that's how we started off. That's how it
sounds
began.
wonderful. Yeah. I mean, I should say I was a guest on it, and it was just a wonderful experience. I'll never forget it. It's like the first time I've ever done anything quite like that, though. And for that extended amount of time, I think it had to be 45 minutes to an hour, talking about myself. And I really stepped out of my comfort zone there. But let me tell you, it was life-changing. I mean, it was just wonderful to be on that platform, being able to tell your story and people listening. And what I also love about a story club is you have people from all over the place, and it's not just one genre, it's all kinds. Right? You have all different kind of genres on that show.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, we really liked having you on the show, and I'm looking forward to your second appearance because I think it's happening sometime next month. Yeah.
Yes.
Shivani told me it's going to be excellent. Yeah, we have a lot of people. The first thing I wanted to make a part of this organization or this venture is diversity, because I'm sitting in a country where every 50 kilometers, the dialect changes. Forget about the language, the complete dialect changes. So we are very used to an extremely multicultural, colorful, space. And that is exactly what we wanted for a story club. So if you see our logo as well, it's multicolored. Our tagline says multicultures. And we wanted everybody. The kind of stories that we, call in people to share, they're very interesting stories. Yours was excellent. I remember that. I remember the episode. And that is exactly what we wanted, that authors should feel that experience, and the audience, your readers, your prospect readers should experience you, know. So now there is a continuity. You enjoying what you're doing on the show. You stepped out of your comfort zone. You're experiencing that. And people who love your book are now experiencing you as a person. So that was where we realized this is the zing. This is the zing.
It is. It's a wonderful, it's just a wonderful platform. And you can pick up on energy, right? And you see the energy of the person talking, and they want to be there. They want to talk about it. It's not just some, prosaic thing. It's just wonderful. And you can make deep connections with people that you wouldn't otherwise, meet or know. I think it's wonderful. Absolutely. And I'm excited about coming on too. So where would you say, do you get your inspiration from? Like, where do you get your creativity from? From my standpoint, it was since I was a little girl, I love to write. I always thought there was something more playing underneath a person's personality. The people would say one way, talk one way, and then act another. And I always thought there was some sort of disconnect there. And that's where I kind of wrote about, emotions and things like that. Yeah. So where would you say you get your creativity from?
I spend a lot of time alone. So there is a lot of time that I spend on my own, and I kind of really like it. So where I am here, this part of the world, I would say it's a luxury to find time, your alone time, because a lot of people, family, friends, commitment, the regular stuff, and there is more, there is a lot more. So I've been able to, I think, find a lot of my art in that solo space of mine. So I ride, I drive, I trek. I'm a very outdoorsy person. So the last couple of years, I think all the time that I spent on my own is now showing in, because a lot of thoughts came into my mind, and now that's all coming out. It's manifesting itself in reality. So I would say that the time that I spend on my own is very, very important to me, because it's the hub of all my creativity. That's where it just keeps churning itself out from.
That's where you get all the good stuff, right? I need to spend more time by myself. I don't. Or do you meditate?
Yeah, I do a little. I don't it's been 2 years now that I've really, really sat down to meditate. I live very close to a monastery. Okay, this is a piece of information I must share with you.
Yeah.
I live walking distance from a beautiful lake and then a monastery. All right. And this lake has a story. I mean, there was an old Italian prison camp over here in the 1950s. And once in a year, they would have Christmas. And for Christmas, there was, I think, a British army officer who said that I want a lake over here. So all these fellows, they got together and they built that lake. It's a man-made lake, and then they would lay out wooden boards on top of it. And while the wooden boards would be slightly kind of moving because of the water, people would gather and they would have their little high tea or their party or whatever. Further down, there is a beautiful monastery, and this monastery is really old. When I say really old, I think it is from the time, I think, or maybe a little before, Dalai Lama left Tibet and came to India.
Wow.
So when he left Tibet, he walked in straight to India. So Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, what is that guy? Steven Seagal, Richard Gere. All these people, when they come to India, there are a couple of important Buddhist places that they go to, and this is one of those places. So I have seen Steven Seagal. In fact, I've spoken to his entourage when I was in school, and that time he was famous because everybody knew him as the Under Siege guy, And I came back from school and I see like a lot of bikes and cars and fancy bikes and cars going that side. I was like, what is going on? So we went, a couple of friends went, and then I see that, there's a lot of people there. So I was like, somebody important must have turned up. And we guys used to go there just to hang out around the monastery. And we had friends who'd play football there. And then somebody told me that, what, guess who's here? I said, I thought it must be some, minister or someone. So they said, it's the Under Siege guy. And we were like, Steven Seagal. They were like, yeah. I was like, wow. And I'm fond of martial arts, I mean, like, I'm genuinely fond of martial arts. I have people, family who are very good in martial arts. So that interest and, of course, the Buddhist bent and the inclination that I had, I waited for him, and then I saw him pass by. And till date, I don't know whether he did make eye contact, but I couldn't tell. So I don't really make eye contact. I was standing in my uniform and I was looking at him, and it was just him and I for like 3 seconds, but then it was crystal clear. It was nice.
Oh, those are fun. That's cool. Yeah, so you've always been a fan of martial arts. You kind of do that too as well?
In school, from school, I kind of, began a little bit of self-defense and things like that. The last couple of years, I took it a little more seriously. So I wouldn't say that I would know any specific art explicitly well, but yeah, on a bad day, I can defend myself. Yeah, I'll be out.
Well, that's pretty good. My son wants to be a boxer, and I'm trying to talk him out of it. All day long, I hear about, I want to be a boxer. He's 14, and I don't really want him to do that. I don't want his brain getting, bumped around. I'm like, I don't know, but he's like intent on it. He really wants to do it. I mean, really, really badly. I'm like, I don't know. I don't want him to do that.
About it, he eventually, you might not be able to kind of, understand and support that side of him now, right. But once he's 18, he will go ahead with it.
Probably.
Because UFC is big today. I watch a lot of UFC, and it's violent. I agree, and it is dangerous, but it is worth it because it's not the fight; it's the preparation to that fight. It's the mental training and the physical training. That fight is what, a 10-minute thing. It just comes and goes like a blip, But that entire thing that you work around your diet and then your sleep, that is golden because that makes you very disciplined in life. Tomorrow, if you decide that you want to do something, that discipline will ensure that you become that thing that you want to.
That is so true. I mean, he fills up his gallon of milk with water. It's an empty gallon. He fills that up with water. That's how much water he's going to drink for the day. He does these protein shakes. We have the weights and the boxing thing all downstairs for him. And he's, constantly working out. I'm like, oh boy.
This is something I'll share with you. You can tell him that it's come all the way from India. Tell him to eat homemade food, broccoli and chicken, boiled broccoli and chicken. He will not require a drop of protein shake. I've never had any of these protein shakes,
Yeah.
industry protein shakes in my life. Never. I eat homemade food and I keep switching because you have to keep changing. Don't make it monotonous. As long as you're eating your fruits and you're eating your veggies and you're eating your meat, you're on track. You don't need anything else.
Right. Yeah. This, I'm glad we went here because I want to ask you, what is your favorite food? And could you tell us maybe a little bit of popular food that people like in India? I would love to know.
This is a joke. My friends, they pull my leg because I am very fond of this. I don't remember exactly whether it's Chinese or it's Tibetan. So the Tibetans call it momos. The Chinese call it dumplings. Okay. I'm really fond of it because since I was young, since school, that was the fastest food available all over the city. Wherever I've lived all over India. Wherever I've lived, for some reason, there's always been this Buddhist monastery inclination, and there would be dumplings, momos available everywhere as street food. So yeah, I would say that is one of my favorites. And then of course I dig burgers. I'm very fond of burgers. I have to really take care of myself. When I sit down to eat burgers, I just go nuts. But yes, I have to take care of myself. And finally, I'm very fond of Russian salad. I love Russian salad.
What is Russian salad? What's in that?
It's a salad with the regular veggies. It's got a little bit of fruit in it. Oh, and then there is this kind of meal that goes into it with boiled eggs that makes it a really heavy meal. So whenever I think the third time I've come across someone who said, "What is a Russian salad?" I don't know whether it's my mother's concoction because she's smart. In order to feed us when we were young, she would come up with these names. She would be like, "Hey," but it's exclusive. It's very and she makes it very well with pork chops. So yes, that's what Russian salad is. I'll send you a picture sometime.
Yeah. Do you have like a special dressing that goes with it that she?
I will have to ask her. Because she's very good with continental. So I'll ask her what exactly Russian salad is. I'll message it to you.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right. So are you going to write another book, or what is what's on the horizon for you? Going to be doing a movie, or what are you going to be doing?
Yeah. So I am writing my second book. Guardians of Shambhala is a 4-book series. Oh, wow. The first one basically opens up the story and introduces the characters to people. The second and third book go a little deeper. And because it is a combination of our ancient scripts and UFO technology, so there is a lot of very strange kind of research that I have to keep juggling between, Right. So I read a little bit I read about the Vimanas, and then I go back and I check what is a Vimana, and then I get to know that these Vimanas began here in India, and then I see that there's a deep study going on about Vimanas in the United States. And
now wait a minute, I don't even know what that is. Could you explain? Yeah, could you tell me what that is?
Vimana is a Sanskrit word for something that can fly. So what I could roughly call an aeroplane, or in the UFO world, they call it a spaceship, or they would call it a flying disc. So a Vimana is bell-shaped. It's a flying object which is bell-shaped, and it had the capacity of not just traveling between planets, but it could travel between galaxies. It could bend time and stuff like that, So yeah, I've been researching a lot. The first book took me 2 years to research. This one is taking me longer because there's a lot more details that I kind of need to add. It's a thriller, it's a fiction, but there is a lot of stuff put into this, which historians, archaeologists, history buffs have come back to me asking that, isn't this actually the way you've written it? Isn't it true that there is a place called Shambhala? The Chinese call it Shangri-La. We call it Shambhala, So it's the same place.
You've piqued my interest. Yes, it sounds fascinating. So, okay, I want to ask you about the writing process that you go through. Like right now, I'm in the thick of it, and it's just, okay, so I'm in the last stage of edits. Thank God. I've been going back and forth. I got one copy of my second book, and I've gone through it again. And you know what I did? I don't know how I missed this the first time. I've gone through about 100 different edits. I had it also professionally edited, but I went through one chapter and it was third person, and I really needed to change it to first person. It really needed to be done. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I miss this? So now it's going to delay my book a little bit by about 10 days, but I caught that. So yeah, how do you, there's just so much to it, right? How do you
Yeah.
start your writing process?
I usually think up the story. I think up the entire story and I write it as a snapshot, like a summary. And then I take that summary and I start expanding on it chapter by chapter. So for me, when I sit down to write, I don't really I don't look at it as a book. I don't look at it as an article. I just look at my stories as a compilation of what has come out of my mind,
Yeah.
and then I start, it's like a rock. I keep the rock and I see the statue, and then I start taking out the spare parts, and then the statue emerges. So for me, that is the writing process. For me, when I keep an empty stack of papers in front of me, or I open my laptop, it's like that rock that I need to carve out, because I can already see that statue coming out of it. I can already see what is coming out of it. I just need to do away with what is not needed. That is how I give the story its first form. The first form is in the form of a snapshot. So Gardens of Shambhala, I had to change the name 4 times, because every time I would try and keep the name, it would pop out to be a Chinese film. It would pop out to be a Hollywood film. It would pop out to be something, I'd be like, okay, I got to think about it a little deeper. So yeah, and then I start expanding chapter by chapter. And what I do is I write down a brief summary of chapter 1 and I leave it. And then I do that for chapter 2. And then I do that for about 10 chapters. And then I come back to chapter 1. And that little summary that I've written for chapter 1, I expand on that. I write that up really nicely and link it to the second chapter. I plug it in so that I can move to the next one. There is enough linkage and reason to start writing the second one. And then I kind of, expand the second one. So for me, maybe, I don't know, I have never really learned it from some school or fancy college.
Yeah.
Me, creative writing has just come to me naturally. Yeah. I mean, for the last 13, 14 years, it started off with making training manuals and went to writing about the emotional intelligence industry. And then it went to writing about L&D. But then something just kept pushing me towards stories because of that mythological curiosity in mythology, that kept kicking something inside me. That's the process that I follow. The last bit for me, I must mention this, that once you're done with your book and you're done with your first round of editing is when it starts becoming really hectic post that. Yeah. You write your story in your first editing, you're just fine. You feel that, yes, I am an author, I'm doing it well, and the ride is going fine, and boom, that's when the reality starts after your first round of editing.
It's like a nightmare for me. Well, you are a lot more organized when it comes to writing than I am. They say you're either a plotter or a pantser. And I'm very much like the pantser, go by the seat of my pants kind of thing. I mean, I didn't even know how some of the chapters were going to end. I don't know what it is. I mean, it just comes easy to me. People like, where do you get your ideas? Where does it come from? How does it? I go, I don't know. It just is, I have a few minutes alone and boom, it's like a stream of consciousness. I go ahead and I write. I don't have to have a laptop. Sometimes I prefer to write it down on a yellow legal pad and just, where I get flashes of inspiration. I learned that I have to keep a journal with me in the car. I have one next to my nightstand. I learned that the hard way, because have you ever had a really cool idea, right? In the middle of the night, you wake up like, oh, that would be cool. And think, oh yeah, I'll remember that in the morning. You go back to sleep. You wake up and you're like, oh, something was very interesting. And I can't remember. I had that. And I'm like, nope, never again. When I have that and I wake up, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to have some paper close to me so I can write it down and not forget it.
Oh, yes. So I should tell you this. I have video journals, I have audio journals, I I write on tissue papers, I write on every piece and scrap of paper I can find. So I've had my characters wake me up from my sleep and tell me that, listen, this is what you got to write, and then you can sleep off. So I've jumped out in the middle of the night, 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. I get out of bed and I'm like, okay, this is what the character told me. What did it mean? Let me just write it down this way. And then let me see how does it fit into the story. And 2 of my characters in Guardians of Shambhala came into being exactly because of that. Because I had this feeling something is missing, and then I was fast asleep, and I don't know what to call it, an epiphany, or I don't know what to call it, but it woke me up. It said that get up, go and sit down and write this. And one of my favorite chapters came out of this. So Guardians of Shambhala has these 2 chapters. I should never say this as an author, but I'm going to take the risk of saying this. But I have 2 chapters, which are my favorites.
Yep.
So Rudra and Vasuki, these 2 chapters, I just love these 2 chapters because they just came from nowhere. I don't know where was I connected in this universe?
Right.
What was it at that point? And boom, these 2 chapters came out. And these are the 2 chapters, Rudra and Vasuki, that was sent to the publisher, and the publisher read it and said, this is really nice and we want to connect with you.
It's nice. Yeah. That's fabulous. I know what you mean with that. I mean, I've had characters that won't leave me alone. Like there's like inner dialogue, like, oh, this character, they would definitely say that you got to write it down so you don't forget it. And I've had some of the best writing, and I have favorite chapters as well in my book that have come like from the middle of the night, out of nowhere. People ask, where does it come from? I don't know, somewhere in my subconscious, I'm dreaming this up, or it just comes to me. And I think, you know what? And I think too is, have you ever been writing something and you're like so excited? I mean, when I was writing it, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. I'm going to I could tell that, the energy that's emanating from yourself, and you're writing it. You're like, okay, this is going to be good. My problem with writing is organizing it. So that was my biggest thing with the second book is, I had no problem writing it. I spent, it was very fun. I did it during the pandemic, it took about 1.5 years, but putting it together so it flows nicely. So I should probably take some more of your, what you do, because I am not very organized. I have things all over the place, and I probably should start organizing a little bit, but I feel like if I start doing that, my thing is I feel like it's going to stifle me, and I'm not going to want to finish, but I got to get over that, I guess. I need some.
No, but can I tell you something? If you really ask me, I think you are creative. You are at your creative best the way you are. So don't change that. No. So even if you feel that you're not organized, your brain is organizing it, and you are being able to publish your books. So whatever you are doing, you're doing it just fine. Don't change it. Maybe I'm organized differently. It just sounds more friendly, and you might feel that your version of being organized is not that friendly, but I don't think that way, because I'm saying this again. I remember saying this to you. Your first book has to be a film. And if somebody does not get their hands on it and does not do it at the right time, I'm going to pick up that book and start pitching it, because the first book deserves to become a film,
Thank you so much. I've had so many people say, we got to get this made into a film. I go, I know, it's just got to get into the right hands,
I remember the episode, and I also told Shivani that we have to be prepared for situations like this in the future. If we have an author who is interested and the book deserves to be a film, we have to have a network where we are able to pitch it and be able to put a little bit of pressure saying that give it a shot, because for someone to invest into it, it's a big gamble. But if we created enough credibility, I'm sure somebody would say a yes. And that book is going to become a film. Give it time. You will see.
Oh, thank you so much. I've already manifested it. It's divine timing. People ask, why haven't you published like before? Because, I'm sort of middle-aged, whatever. But you know what? Amazon wasn't around 15 years ago, so it wouldn't have the wide range that it does today, with our books. Yeah. So it's just all about divine timing, and it'll happen. And I just got to be patient, but patience isn't something that's a strong suit of mine. No,
but I think you're doing well. You've written your second book. You're moving on. You are on the right track. It's just a little more time when somebody notices you as an individual brand and starts digging up everything that you're doing, and they suddenly realize that, how did we miss this? I'm telling you, that's how it happens at a story club. When we invite you guys, when we invite authors from all over the world, I always tell everyone this one single thing. One, it's an invite-only show. It's exclusive. It's not open to everyone. It's an invite-only show. We do a lot of hard work to find our authors. And the second thing is that it is about you. It is about your brand, and everything that me and the entire team does, sing for every single author, it is so that your brand looks like what it should on social media. It should not just get lost in that hustle bustle. So every time a Story Club's post pops up with you or any other author, we ensure that your brand looks nice. People should look at it and say that, hey, I want to read this author's book. The stories look so interesting on their posts,
Yeah, well, It's just fabulous. I can't say enough good things about a story club. A story club, everybody, find it. Why don't you give yourself a plug and, let everyone know where people can find you, find your books so they can get in touch with you if they like. Yeah, let everyone know.
Yeah, sure. So I'll come to my book later. Let me share this with everyone. So if you want to watch our shows at a story club, you could go onto Facebook and type @Indian American Art. We have 4 channels there. Our main show, which is going on A Story Club, has been on for the last 83 weeks, every single Saturday at 9:30 p.m. And I'm saying 9:30 p.m. IST because the time doesn't change here. In the US, it keeps changing from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So the time over here is sacrosanct, and we've never missed a Saturday, and we've always had excellent authors come to this show. Our brand extensions are A Story Club History, A Story Club Wellness, and A Story Club Global Cultures. And the remaining shows are all talk shows where we call in people who are influencers in their own right, in their space. So whether the person is the governor, whether we've had people from the Reagan administration. We had Alexander Dugin, who is Russia's greatest living philosopher. We've had Reza Georgiani, who was an Iranian-American philosopher. We had Helga LaRouche, who's the president of the Schiller Institute. The list just goes on,
Fabulous.
And please do watch the shows. Yeah, and about my book, it's available on Amazon. It's called Guardians of Shambhala by Arun Bhagwati. Grab a copy, watch our shows, read my book, and there is enough places you can get in touch with me. So I'd like to know what you guys think about it.
Absolutely. And I will have all this info in the show notes as well, everybody. Gosh, it's been so wonderful talking with you, Arun. It always is. I love talking with you. I could talk with you all day long, but you got to get some sleep. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I had a very good time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thanks. Thank you, Wendy.
Hey, thank you for listening, and I'm so glad you're here. I had so much fun and hope you enjoyed this episode. To hear more episodes, please subscribe to my website, ajuicypearpodcast.com. See you there.